Welcome to Rivers United Church. My name is John Hunter. I'm the lead pastor. Want to welcome you to this special edition of Church Online, where we would like to talk about our country. I've been praying over the last 6 months about, God, what would you want me to share with all the things that our country is facing right now? From a pandemic to shutdowns to people peacefully protesting racial inequality, to civil unrest, to rioting, to tensions, to, in 3 days, an election that looks like it's going to be one of the most contested things we've ever done in our country. And I thought to myself, God, what would you want me to share? And I even prayed to say, look, God, do you just want me to tell people who they should vote for and share all of my political opinions? and I think you could almost hear God laughing at that one. Because I don't think that's what he wants me to share. Although I will say this, that voting in the next 3 days is one of the most important things you'll do. It's your God-given responsibility and privilege. And I hope and pray that you will vote. And I hope that you'll do it prayerfully, that you'll consider the candidates and what's at stake. And I hope you'll pray for me as I cast my vote as well. Having said that, a lot of people have asked me, John, where do you go? How do you figure out who to vote for? And they have a lot of questions about that. And so I just want to recommend a resource that's helped me in considering the candidates and who to vote for. It's called myfaithvotes.org. There's some very godly people at that website that have put in about policies and about some of the candidates, both local and national. And so you can kind of figure out, hey, what should a follower of Jesus do? And so if you're interested in that, myfaithvotes.org, it's a resource that I use personally, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. That's not the word that I believe that God gave me for this, but I do believe that God has given me a word to share, and it's a word from him, not me. As I prayed, I realized God saying, what I really want you to share, John, is this. How do you face crisis? Out of all the things that we're facing right now, is there a playbook? Wouldn't it be nice if God gave us a playbook for facing crisis in our life? Not only as a nation, but as we face crisis individually, is there something we could pull out and go back to it again and again and again? Just like an athletic team would do that when I played football. That was one of the things we had. We had a playbook. And you could pull it out and you could review it and say, hey, whenever we face this, this is what we're going to do. Wouldn't it be nice if God had something like that? And I believe that he does. And as I prayed about it, God brought back to my remembrance an ancient story. When I say story, I don't mean a fable or something that's fiction. I mean a story that means a real life story of something that happened that has principles that we could pull out and have a playbook for how we can face crisis in our life. It's found in the book of 2 Chronicles. You may have never heard this story before, but it's found in 2 Chronicles chapter 20. And it says this, it says, after this, the Moabites, the Ammonites, with some of the Menuhites, came to wage war against Jehoshaphat. Now, you may have never heard about any of the people that I'm talking about here. From all these different ites that are coming to wage war to the king, who was the king of Judah at the time. His name was Jehoshaphat. And one of the things he wanted me to say is that he's not fat, even though fat is in his name. I'm just playing. He didn't tell me to say that. But he was a good king. He was one of the few good kings, as you read the Old Testament, that really loved God and really tried to serve the people, and he was a good king. But he had made some mistakes. And I don't know if you ever had that in your life where you're just coming off of a defeat, of a mistake that you made, and then your enemies choose to use that as an opportunity to attack you. It's like you got knocked down by a wave, and now a tsunami is coming to finish you off. And that's exactly what he had. Now, we don't have cities with walls around them where you would go and hide. We really haven't been under siege as a nation. We've been attacked before, but we haven't been under siege like they're talking about here. And so when an enemy comes, you hide behind your gates and they pound on your walls. And that's what they were doing. And they outnumbered them almost 10 to 1. It was tens of thousands of soldiers came against Jehoshaphat. They had way more in their army than they did. And they scream out things just as they pound on the gates and say, we're going to kill you. Not only are we going to kill you, we're going to kill your whole family. I know that's pretty graphic. We'll probably make you watch while we kill your family and then kill you. He had a problem. he was facing a crisis. And what I want you to look at today is, as you face a crisis, you might have a different crisis than Jehoshaphat, but as you face a crisis, what do you do? So today you might want to take some notes because here is the playbook. Okay, you ready? Here's what happens. Verse 3. Alarmed. How did he feel? Alarmed. Alarmed, Jehoshaphat resolved to inquire of the Lord, and he proclaimed a fast for all of Judah. There's a couple things I wanted you to see from this verse. The first one is this, is how he felt. And the second thing is what he did. The way he felt was this, alarmed. When you see something scary, it's okay to feel alarmed. When the enemies are pounding at your gates, it's okay to be alarmed. Have you experienced something that's alarming? Have you ever had that happen when you got a call from a creditor like Visa or MasterCard, right? And they call you and they're pounding at the gates and you feel alarmed. Or a loss of a job. Or maybe you went to the doctor and you got a report that wasn't right and they calling you back in and you're waiting to find out that report and it makes you alarmed. My question for you today is this. What do you do when you're alarmed? And what Jehoshaphat did was this. He resolved to inquire of the Lord. What do you do? What is your mode? When a crisis hits, what do you do? There's several people I know. One of the things that some people do is this. They're preppers. So what they do is they find their solace in preparing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but the first thing they do is prepare. Because if you have a plan, then you'll be okay. If you're like that, then I want you to lean into this. I'll tell you what somebody else does. Some people just cringe. They get paralyzed. They just want to hide. And they hide when a crisis comes. They don't know what else to do. Some people, instead of thinking it through, they don't want to prepare. What they do is they just jump out and act. They just whatever the first thing that comes to mind, you just go do it. And that's how they respond. How do you respond? Do you isolate? Do you try to get by yourself and figure it out and you don't want anybody around you and you kind of push everybody away during that time? I want you to see how Jehoshaphat reacted. What he did was this. He resolved and inquired of God. Number one, to prepare for a crisis. Number one, what I want you to write down, you seek God. You seek God. That's what Jehoshaphat did. The other part that I want you to see is this, is that Jehoshaphat didn't just seek God alone. He didn't isolate himself, but he said he proclaimed a fast for all of Israel. Basically, he called everybody together. He didn't just go to himself. He brought everybody together. Here's what it said, and we'll skip down to verse 4. It says that in verse 4, the people of Judah came together to seek help from God. That he didn't just do it alone, but that they were seeking God's help together. The first thing that you do when you go through a crisis, the first thing that you do is seek God. And then the second thing, do you come together or do you try to just do it all by yourself? I got to tell you, I know a lot of people that just try to do things all by themselves. I know sometimes I do that. Sometimes they do that with church. They go, hey, I'm facing a crisis, so here's what I'm going to do. I need some time away. Now, I understand sometimes we do, but is the first thing you do you come together and pray with people of God? Or do you go, you know what, I just got to get by myself. I can't go to group right now. I can't come to church right now. I just have to be alone. But here's what I want to tell you. Most of the time, you're not going to feel like being around people. It's a counterintuitive thing. You're going to feel like, I got to get by myself. I want to push everybody away. That's the natural response for most people. I'm going to challenge that response, though, to say this. Most Sundays that I wake up, I don't wake up and say, I want to go to church. No, it's more like this. I don't feel like going. Now, I'm a full-time pastor, so I got to go just to get paid, right? But I got to tell you, sometimes I don't feel like it. But I go, and then after I go, you know what happens? I'm glad I did. Same thing with community group. When I go to group, you know what happens to me? I go, man, it's really hard to get here. I'm so busy right now, and I have all this stuff. But when I go, I'm so glad that I did. Can I tell you something? The same thing's true for you. When you're in crisis, you need to be around people. And so number one, you got to seek God. But number two, we have to do it together. You can't do this by yourself. You need other people. And we're going to explain more of how that works in just a minute. Let's see how the story progresses. Verse 9. Verse 9, it says, when they came together, here's what they did. It says, if calamity comes upon us, this is what they were talking about. If calamity comes upon us, whether by the sword of judgment or plague or famine, we will stand in your presence before this temple that bears your name. And we will cry out to you in our distress, and you will hear us and save us. You will hear us and save us. I want you to look at these words that it says right here. Because what he's quoting here is this, where he says, we'll stand before you at this temple. Hundreds of years before, in fact, if you flip back a few chapters in 2 Chronicles to 2 Chronicles chapter 7, what you would see is this, is that during the time of Solomon, when they built this temple, God said, hey, if you ever find yourself in crisis, come back and stand in this place. That's what they're quoting. And cry out to me. And here's what you pray. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked way, then I will hear from heaven. I'll forgive their sins and heal their land. You may have heard that verse. People love to talk about that when they talk about country, but that's exactly what they're doing. They're claiming a promise. Now that promise was to Israel, but it was for our understanding to say, if we humble ourselves, God will hear us. And you know what they're doing here though? They're claiming God's promise. They're claiming God's promise. So number 3. Number 1, seek God. Number 2, come together. Number 3, claim God's promises. Remember those. Instead of focusing on the battle that's in front of you, instead of focusing on the crisis that's in front of you, you come together, you seek God, and then you claim, as you go there, you're claiming His promises, and that's helping you focus on the power of God. Now, when we say claim, this is really important. We're going to kind of unpack this thought. It doesn't mean that we tell God what to do. And you're going to see that kind of play out in the rest of this. So let's go to verse 12. Verse 12 says this, our God, will you not judge them? We have no power to face this vast army that's attacking us. We do not know what to do, but our eyes are on you. Let me ask you a question. When you don't know what to do, what do you do? When you're facing something and you go, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do in this situation, what do you do? And you know what they're saying? What we're going to do is this. We don't know how to instruct God. We don't even know what to claim. But we're claiming your promise about you being with us, and we're going to focus on you. And we're believing that you are going to show up. Verse 13. All the men of Judah, with their wives and their children and their little ones, stood there before the Lord. They brought everybody. Now, I want to kind of stop there. When you're going through a crisis, and your kids, do you bring your kids in and say, we need to pray about this? Or do you just always have the solution? You go, Mom and Dad will take care of this, and we don't want to share that with our kids. Now, please don't hear what I'm not saying. There is a time and there's discretion, and you don't want to share too much with your kids and have them scared or something like that. I understand that. But when you're in crisis, do you bring your kids in to see how we handle crisis, how you handle crisis as a follower of Jesus, or do you just keep that to yourself? Let me ask you a question. What are you teaching them about crisis? That they come to you or that they go to God? What they did here was they brought all their little ones. Now, I want to share something that affected my faith in my life. When I was in high school, my dad got cancer. And I remember early on, he didn't share that with me right away. He shared it. He was a pastor, and he had shared it with some people that were close to him. And at the time, I really didn't understand why he didn't share it with me right away. And it bugged me. But now as a dad and as getting closer to the age that he was at, I'm starting to realize I understand why he did that. And it's real easy to want to keep it to yourself. But after that, he didn't keep it to himself. He shared with me. And it was one of the hardest times of his life as his health deteriorated and he went through this trial. He also was not able to do a lot of the things that he wanted to do. He lost some of his dreams along the way. That he wanted to be able to, when I graduated high school, he wanted to be able to send me and pay for some of my college, and he had some money put away, but that money evaporated with his health condition. And then I knew that he could have done early retirement, and he wanted to be able to start and plant a church, but He wasn't able to do that. In fact, he died not long after I was graduating high school. But I remember in the latter days when he got close to death, I remember looking at him and going, Dad, don't you feel like God lets you down? And I remember him looking at me and saying, son, I may have let God down, but he has never let me down. You know what he did? He included me. I watched a man cling to his faith. I got to tell you, it's one of the most important things I ever learned about facing crisis. That you don't have to know what the future holds or hold on to my dreams and my vision for the future, but bringing God. And he taught me how to have faith in the midst of crisis, the most important lesson he ever taught me. So my challenge for you is this. Would you include your children, your little ones, so that they can see what God can do? That's so huge. Okay, let's see the next part. Verse 14. Verse 14. Then the Spirit of the Lord came. Then the Spirit of the Lord came. They're about to get a word from God. Can I tell you what I think we really need? We don't always need what we think we need. Because I got to tell you, most of the time, I think I need a resource. I think I need money. I think I need God to do something in a certain way. What we really need is a word from God. And I want to show you how they got a word from God. The Spirit of the Lord came on Jaziel. Now, it kind of lists his lineage, but I'll be honest with you, I've never heard of Jaziel. And I never heard of him after this day. He's somebody that we go, who is he? But let me tell you when it came, when they stood together, when they came together. Here's what didn't happen. You know who the word of the Lord didn't come to? Jehoshaphat. Now, did that not mean that Jehoshaphat didn't serve God? No, it meant that what Jehoshaphat and Israel needed, he gave to someone else. And that's so important to realize that the Spirit of the Lord, the Word of God, what they really needed, came to them when they gathered together, when they seek God, but they did it together. And it didn't come just through the great leader, okay? Can I tell you something? When I need a word from the Lord, he doesn't always just give it to me. He gives it to me through someone else. Sometimes it's guys that I know, Frenchie and John Paul and Pete and Sally and Christy, different ones in the church. God gives them a word to share with me. And I'm talking about real life examples that have happened real recently where God has used them in my life. And I'm hoping that God has used me in some of you guys' lives. And that's what church is all about. It's not some great guru or priest or something that God just gives all the words to. It's us, collection. That's how God uses it. Just want to make sure you knew that. That's why it's so important that we come together. That's why it's so important that you have a group in your life that can speak life into you. Here's what God said. Listen. If I could ask you to circle a word, you know what it would be? Listen. Listen, King Jehoshaphat, and all who live in Judah and Jerusalem. This is what the Lord says. Do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army, for the battle is not yours, but God's. And he's about to give some instruction. But before we get to the instruction, here's what I want to tell you. You'll never get this. You'll never get the word of God unless you do what we're going to talk about. Number four, listen. Listen to God. Do you listen? Are you listening? Are you too busy talking? Are you listening? Are you too busy forming, this is what I think God's going to do. I've already got it all worked out. Are you listening to God? You know what God said to him? Listen, King Jehoshaphat. Listen to what I'm telling you. Now, he liked what he heard, right? I'm liking what he heard. He said the battle, I don't have to fight it. God's going to fight it. So it's really nice being behind these walls because God's going to do all the work. Now, I want to show you what it says next because it might rock your world like it's rocking mine, okay? Here's what happens next. Verse 16. Tomorrow. When? The enemy is at the gates right now. They're screaming tonight. They may even break down the walls tonight. But he says, tomorrow, march down against them. Let me ask you a question. How many people you like to wait? Anybody? You like to wait in line? You like waiting for surgery? Have you ever had a night where it's like you have to wait all night before you have surgery? That's the worst night in the world. You sleep like a slab of bacon, right? You just roll over all night long. If that's where you're at, then I need you to hear this next part because number 5, to prepare for crisis, here's what you got to do. You have to wait on God's timing. If you don't get this right, you are going to mess it up, not because what you do is wrong, but because your timing is off. So we have to wait on God's timing. Can I tell you what his timing was? Wait. Now, that's not so bad. Because after all, he just said he's going to fight the battle. I want to finish that thought. Check this out. Verse 17. Verse 17. You will not have to fight this battle. That sounds great. We're going to just be behind our walls and God's going to do everything. But look at this next part. You take up your position, stand firm, and see the deliverance of the Lord will give you. See the deliverance the Lord will give you, Judah and Jerusalem. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Go out and face them tomorrow, and the Lord will be with you. Now, there's some really great stuff here, but there's two things that struck my attention that went, I don't think I like that. The first one is this. I love the fact that God's going to fight my battles. I did not like the fact that he said, go out and face them. That means, hey, I'm going to do the battle. I'm not giving you a battle plan. I'm asking you to open up your gates, go out there and face your enemies, and I'll take care of it. But you got to go out there. That's number one. And number two, not tonight, tomorrow. So all night tonight, you got to think about opening up those gates with 10-1 odds. You like that? I got a feeling everybody here doesn't like the idea. It's so counterintuitive to wait. And the question we have to ask ourselves is this. When you have to go out and face the enemy tomorrow, what do you do tonight? What do you do while you wait? And that's what I want you to see right here. What do I do while I wait? Jehoshaphat bowed down with his face to the ground, and all the people of Judah and Jerusalem fell down in fear. No. In outrage to God. God, why are you making us wait? God, why did you bring this army here? Why can't you just do this now? Right? No, that's not what they did. They fell down, look at this word, in worship before the Lord. You want to circle something? Worship. You want to know what you do while you wait that will change everything? Worship. And it even says it right there, worship before. Oh, we haven't had the victory yet. Worship before the Lord. I know what it means. Worship before the Lord. What does worship mean? I love how Rick Warren defined it. He defined it very simply, but very profoundly. He said, worship is simply this. It's loving God back. You know what happens when you worship God? You're simply loving God back. Now, understand this. Worship's not about you. It's about God. But that's a good thing. Because as you face this problem, what you're doing is you're remembering who God is. And he's saying we can't do anything tonight, but what we can do is worship God. We can love him back. That God has given us all that we need. Because see, what we really need, we don't need what we think we need. We really need God. You see, Jesus has died on the cross and he's rose from the dead and he's offering us resurrection power. So what you really need in your life is God. And how do we get God in our life? What do we do to respond to God? We worship him. We love him back. Okay, let me show you this next part. Verse 19. Then some of the Levites and the Kohathites and the Korhites stood up and praised the Lord. I want to kind of pause there. Who are these people? These people came out and they started to praise God. Now, who are they, right? Who are the Korhites? Have you ever heard of them? I had to go back and look it up. I don't know who all these people are. I know who the Levites are. They're the priests. The Kohathites and the Korhites, I looked it up. They're the sons of Korah. And they come all the way back from the time of Moses. That's how long their lineage is, of being a family of praise team leaders, basically. And they led in praise and worship all from the time of Moses all the way here. That's hundreds of years. And in the time of David, they wrote a song just for the sons of Korah. It's Psalms 46. And I wanted to read it to you because I have a feeling this might be what they were singing. And the book of Psalms is a songbook. And it says that this is to be sung Alamoth. And I always wondered, what does that mean? In Psalms 46, gives instruction. It says, this is from the sons of Korah, and it's to be sung Alamoth, which means it's to be sung like a child, in a soprano voice, basically, but like a child, like coming before God. When you're in crisis, that's what it means. No better time to sing this one. And maybe you're facing a crisis and you needed to hear what this song is. Psalms 46, verse 1, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. I'm just going to read it instead of sing it to you because you wouldn't get as much out of it. I'm going to say it again just to make sure you're getting it. Psalms 46 and verse 1, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Verse 2, therefore we will not fear, even though the earth is removed and the mountains be carried in the midst of the sea. Verse 3, though its waters roar and be trouble, though the mountains shake and its swellings. And then it says Selah. It's a music note that says pause here. Meditate on that. Let that sit a moment. I'm going to skip down to verse 10. You can read the rest of it on your own later. But it says this, be still and know that I am God. Some people have heard that verse before and you didn't know where it came from. That's the context of it. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. It's the same thought. What do you do while you wait? What do you do to prepare for crisis? I'm going to give it to you. Number 6. The most important point there are. Everything else led up to this moment. Number 6. Praise God before the victory. I'm going to tell you what's going to change your life the most. And when we tell you what's going to happen in this story, you are going to be amazed, okay? Let me tell you what happens next. Let me tell you what happens in this story next. Let me tell you what God does. And let me tell you when I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you that next week. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Don't read it. I want you to pause here. Don't read the rest of the story. In fact, we'll know. You won't be blessed if you read it. No, I'm just playing. But come back next week and we'll tell you the rest of the story because it is one amazing story, and God has so much to share us about what to do in the time of crisis before, during, and after, and we're going to talk about that next week. But for today, here's what I'm going to tell you. When there is a crisis that's looming and you don't know what to do, here's what you got to do. Praise God. Worship God before the victory. You want to know why? Because what it's doing is this. It's helping you understand my faith is not in my circumstances. It's in God. I'm not waiting to see how this will turn out because God is with me and I'm trusting in Him. In fact, I'm trusting in God. I'm trusting God with the things I don't understand. And if you ever understand this, you will not be dependent on your circumstances anymore. Jehoshaphat and the sons of Korah got it. And it says that the worship, if we look at that verse, and I'll just go back to it real quick, it says this, they got very loud. You see that? Very loud. They all of a sudden started to get confidence. If you want confidence in the midst of crisis, then here's what I'm going to tell you to do. You want to know what I'm going to tell you to do? Praise God before the victory. Praise God while you wait. And all of a sudden, you're not dependent on your circumstances anymore because God is with you. That's how you prepare for crisis. This is God's playbook for what we're facing as a nation. This is God's playbook for whatever you're facing in your life. If you follow this, you will not be below your circumstances. You'll be above them. Can I pray for you today? Let's pray together. Father God, we come before you today. Lord, no time do we need you more than today. God, our country is facing the worst crisis we've ever seen. God, we have an election in 3 days, and it's likely to be contested. And we're coming before you to pray. God, give us wisdom to know what to do. But more than that, right now, we're praying as people of God that we are humbling ourselves, and we're praying, and we're turning from our wicked ways. And we're seeking your face that you might heal us and heal our land. I believe that you can, Lord. And today, I don't have a clue how you're going to do it, but here's what I believe. If we were to seek you and come together and claim your promises and listen to you and wait on you, God, and then praise you before, I believe you'll show up in the most incredible way that we've ever seen. I pray for the one that's facing crisis that maybe we don't even know about. That they need you right now. God, help them to lean into this. Help them to realize they don't have to go this alone, that they have a church family that loves and is ready to support them, and they have a God that's not against them, but's for them. Father, I pray maybe today they'll call out to you in their own words. And God, help them to let us know so we can celebrate with them and help them in the days to come. Father, I pray, Lord, as we face this as a country, let this church, Rivers United Church, let us be a beacon of light even in this dark time. Help us to reach out and do all that we can as we vote, as we try, as we strive, and as we seek you. And right now, God, as we praise you before the victory, we're giving it all to you, and we pray you receive all the honor and glory and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.